If you've ever been caught in one of those haunting situations where your heart yearns for something you know is completely off limits, then you'll understand exactly what I went through. My name is Emily, and at 36 years old, I thought I had my life figured out. For more than a decade, I've been married to my husband, Mark. Our marriage has never been perfect. Whose is? We've faced our fair share of arguments, tight budgets, and moments of doubt. But through it all, we somehow held on to each other. Yet what I've learned is that it's not always the obvious things, the fights, the distance, or the disagreements, that threaten to undo a marriage. Sometimes it's the quiet, unexpected moments that sneak in through the back door of your life and leave everything trembling. For me, it began the day Mark's younger brother Jason came to stay with us. Jason was just 19 at the time, fresh out of college, trying to steady himself and find his footing in the real world. Mark assured me it would only be a few weeks, a quick stopover until Jason figured things out. But as the weeks stretched into months, our small home started to feel even smaller. We didn't have a guest room or extra space, and because our living room was already crowded with furniture and boxes, we ended up setting up a small bed for Jason in our own bedroom. I wasn't thrilled about it. Sharing a room with my husband was one thing, but sharing it with his younger brother was another level of uncomfortable. It felt intrusive, like a violation of a sacred space. But Mark, ever the peacemaker, assured me it was temporary. I reluctantly agreed, even though somewhere deep down I sensed this arrangement might change things in ways I couldn't yet name. At first, it all seemed harmless enough. Jason was polite, quiet, and respectful to a fault. He kept mostly to himself, often buried in his headphones or glued to his laptop, as if determined not to disturb us. For the first couple of weeks, I convinced myself I could handle it. But as the nights stretched on, small things began to change. Mark, exhausted from his long shifts at work, would usually fall asleep within minutes. But Jason, he'd lie awake, his eyes faintly visible in the dim light spilling from the hallway. Sometimes I'd catch him glancing in my direction, not in a casual way, but in a way that felt deliberate, intense, almost questioning. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was being paranoid. But no matter how much I tried to dismiss it, the tension in the room started to feel almost tangible, like a low hum beneath everything. One sticky summer night, the air conditioner broke, turning the bedroom into a stifling, airless box. Mark was snoring softly beside me, completely oblivious to the heat. I got up to open the window, hoping for the smallest breeze, and as I turned back, my eyes locked with Jason's. It wasn't just a glance. It was a stare, direct, lingering, and charged with something I couldn't name. For a split second I froze, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might give me away. I slipped back into bed quickly, pretending I hadn't noticed, but I could still feel the weight of his gaze on me. From that night on, something shifted between us. We didn't speak of it, and how could we? But every interaction began to carry an invisible charge. The brush of his fingers when handing me a glass of water, the way his voice lowered when he said goodnight. Even the silence between us felt heavy, like a secret language neither of us had agreed to, but somehow spoke fluently. And then came the night everything changed. Mark had to leave unexpectedly for an overnight work assignment. For the first time, Jason and I were alone in the room without him. I remember sitting at the edge of the bed, clutching a book I wasn't actually reading, my mind racing with thoughts I didn't want to have. Jason was lying only a few feet away on his small bed, his breathing steady but restless, as if he too couldn't quite settle. "Do you want me to sleep on the couch tonight?" he asked suddenly, his voice low, almost careful. I hesitated. The couch was uncomfortable, and I didn't want to insult him or make him feel unwelcome. "No, it's fine," I replied softly. "We'll manage." But managing wasn't easy. Without Mark there, the room felt smaller, the air thicker. Every sound, the creak of the fan, the shifting of sheets, felt amplified. I tried to close my eyes, to sleep, but Jason's presence pressed at the edges of my awareness like a pulse I couldn't ignore. Eventually, I turned slightly, and that's when I found him watching me. Neither of us spoke at first, but in his eyes, I saw a mirror of my own conflict, the pull and the guilt all tangled together. It was wrong. God, it was so wrong, but it was also undeniable. "Jason," I whispered, my voice shaking. We can't. He nodded slowly but didn't look away. I know, he said, barely audible. But tell me you don't feel it too. The honesty in his words cracked something in me. My chest tightened. My breath came faster. I should have stood up, left the room, done anything but stay there, but I didn't. Instead, I let the silence stretch between us, heavy, dangerous, alive. That night, the boundaries blurred. We didn't do anything extreme, no dramatic, irreversible act. But the closeness, the whispered words, the way our fingers almost brushed, it was enough. Enough to change everything between us. From that moment on, Jason and I were no longer just in-laws awkwardly sharing a bedroom. We were two people carrying a dangerous secret, one that could shatter my marriage, my reputation, and my family if it ever came to light. And the hardest part? It wasn't what we had done, but what we now couldn't undo. The days that followed were harder than I could have ever imagined. Mark, oblivious, began noticing my distracted behavior, asking if I was okay. I lied, telling him I was stressed about work. But the truth was, Jason was in my head constantly. Every time our eyes met across the room, I knew he felt it too. It was like we were tethered by something invisible. Something we couldn't acknowledge, but couldn't break either. Looking back, I can see how dangerous it is to flirt with temptation. You tell yourself it's harmless. You convince yourself you're strong enough to resist. But once you let the thought in, once you allow that first tiny crack in the wall, the damage has already begun. Secrets have a way of growing, of demanding more, until they consume everything. I don't know how long I can keep this hidden, or whether Jason and I will stumble into an even riskier situation. All I know is that one night, in one small room, changed how I saw him, and how I saw myself. And perhaps the hardest thing about infidelity isn't always the act itself. Sometimes it's the silence, the tension, the longing for what you know you cannot and should not have. So if you've ever found yourself standing on the edge of temptation, remember my story, because sometimes all it takes is a single moment of weakness, one shared room, or one look across the dark to change everything forever.